as a child, you look to your parents to give you the emotional support that you need. But I didn't have that. The one memory that I have is being outside as a little girl and just looking up at the sky and saying to God, I don't know why this is happening. I'm the oldest of 5. I have 3 younger brothers and a younger sister. And it was really at the age of 9 when my father had told me of his desire to become a woman that I realized our family was different. I was doing dishes one summer day. My mother was at work, and my father came in the front door and asked me to come out and sit with him. And he just looked at me and said, I want to become a woman. It was the hardest day of my life, and I did not realize that at that age. By 12 and 13 years old, I started to notice an enviness that my father had for me. One incident that would occur time and time again with my father would be he would chase me around the house or around our yard to knock me down on the ground, to lay on top of my body, and to place his hands on my breast. And the way that he laid his body on top of mine made me feel like it was his way of imagining that my breasts were his. And then, of course, as I started to develop, he was in my clothing. So I learned to really be watching what I was putting in my dresser, how the shirts would lay in layers, my underclothing, and it was kind of my code to know if my father had been in my drawers. Nothing was off limits to him. Whatever he wanted that was mine, to fulfill whatever need he had at the time, was what was done. It was his needs ahead of mine. In each stage that I'd gone through, I'd think, Dad wants this experience. And that took a little bit of joy out of me each and every time. As a young girl, it confused me about my own identity and my own sexuality. And that isn't fair to a child, to put them in that type of a situation. What are we promoting to children that are growing up in these environments? And if we say it's okay and we should accept the parents transitioning, what about the effect on the children? I think that I have every right to speak from my experience and my concern for the future generations. When I was 14 years old, I started to wonder if life was worth living. I didn't know if anybody would really care, and I thought it would be much more peaceful if I wasn't alive. But then I had met Mark, and Mark just respected me. And I started to fall in love with him. And I was very young. I was 16 when Mark proposed to me. He was a couple of years older. I really had to do some soul searching there because I didn't want to marry somebody thinking that it was my escape route. I wanted to marry somebody because I was in love and I really believed in that relationship and that it would grow, that we would grow old together. I realized how much I loved him, and the more that I realized how much he loved me, there wasn't a doubt on that wedding day. One of the most hurtful things that my father had ever said to me was on my wedding day. And he turned and looked at me and he said, "It should be me in that gown." And no daughter should have that memory on their wedding day, of their wedding day, of walking up an aisle the whole time knowing that your father wants to be in your wedding gown. When I was 28 years old, my father had decided that he was going to leave the family to pursue his life as a woman. But I looked at him and I said, if you are leaving us to pursue this life, then I am saying goodbye to my father because I no longer have one. And I turned around and I walked out. He started to take hormone therapy and had his legal name changed from Harold Clyde to Becky. And 13 years had gone by from that period that I had not seen my father until I learned that he was dying of esophagus cancer. And I thought, fine, you've left us and now you're going to pass away, and I felt kind of cold about it. God kept knocking at my heart. He started from that moment and saying, you need to forgive him. You need to go talk to him as an adult. And I kept trying to brush it off my shoulders, and I recognized that I couldn't, because the desire to do that became so strong. The whole deal is, as a child, you hate them and you want to hate them because of your own pain and what you're going through. But what I realized as an adult during the last 6 months of that is the pain was so raw and it was so real. I didn't hate him. I tried to bury that love to survive myself because it hurt so bad. I felt that my dad needed to hear, I forgive you for these things. But it was a whole another start of my own healing process that needed to take place. After my father passed away, for the next 3 years, I did research trying to find an organization that came up in support of families and individuals, and I could not find one. It appears that there isn't anybody out there to say, this is how this has impacted my life, of having a father that's transgender, or the importance of having a mother and a father. Children should have a voice. They are the ones that are being used and the main focus point in many arguments. What is best for children? Who better to speak from that than the children themselves?